My family forgot about my baby shower and casually said, it wasn't worth making a big fuss over. I chuckled, canceled the Airbnb I paid for them, and shut down the shared registry. The next day, when they showed up to a locked venue. I'm Marin. I'm 34, married to Ian 36. We live in Albany, New York. After years of trying, 2 miscarriages, 1 failed IVF cycle, and more tears than I can count, we're finally expecting our first child. A little girl. She's due in about 7 weeks. This pregnancy has been a deeply emotional journey. I wanted to mark it with something special, a small baby shower with the people I thought would be just as excited as I was. My family isn't huge, but I figured it'd be manageable. My mom Celia, my 2 younger sisters Maura 29 and Janelle 27, my aunt Soline, my mom's sister, and a few of my closest friends. Nothing over the top. I rented a beautiful little Airbnb in Saratoga Springs. It had 6 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a sunroom that I planned to decorate myself with paper lanterns and some cute baby-themed crafts. I booked a small local catering company that specialized in brunch-style spreads. I even bought custom sugar cookies shaped like rattles and onesies. I invited everyone a month in advance, including links to the registry, Airbnb details, and event times. Everything was planned. I didn't expect fanfare. I didn't expect presents either, not really. What I expected was presents, enthusiasm, love, support. What I got was silence. When I sent out the invite, I heard back from my friends within a day. All enthusiastic. Some even offered to help decorate. But my family? Celia responded with a thumbs up emoji. Maura texted, I'll let you know. Janelle ignored it entirely. I followed up the next week, hoping they just missed it. No real responses again. I tried not to let it bother me. I figured they were busy, or maybe it was just too early to commit. A week before the shower, I sent out a friendly reminder, looking forward to seeing you next Sunday. Let me know if you need directions or help coordinating. Maura finally responded, hey, probably not gonna make it. Long drive, gas prices are crazy. Janelle chimed in soon after, yeah, I might be busy. TBH, baby showers feel kinda dated, right? My mom, my own mother, wrote, honey, don't take it personally. It's just a baby. No need to make a big fuss. I stared at that message for so long I forgot what I was doing. It's just a baby. Just. After everything. After every hormone injection, every ultrasound, every tearful night holding Ian's hand hoping this one would stick. And now, the one moment I tried to celebrate not just the baby, but the journey that led to her, was being dismissed like it was a Facebook event for a garage sale. Ian was furious when I told him. He offered to call them himself, even drive out to pick them up. But I told him no. I didn't want guilt invites or forced attendance. I wanted to be wanted there. So I canceled the Airbnb. Called the host, who was lovely and sympathetic. I explained that it was a family issue, and she even waived the full cancellation fee out of kindness. Then I went into the baby registry and shut it down. All the items I had carefully selected, the notes, the categories, gone. Finally, I sent a simple message to the family group chat, since the shower doesn't seem worth the fuss, I've canceled everything. Hope you all have a good weekend. No reply. Sunday came. The day that was supposed to be filled with hugs, laughter, and excitement over little booties and onesies. Instead, Ian and I packed a picnic and drove up to Thatcher Park. It was a little chilly, but the sun was out and the sky was clear. We sat on a grassy overlook, ate sandwiches, and talked about baby names. And then, around 2:15 p.m., the exact time the shower was supposed to start, my phone started buzzing. Maura, we're at the place? It's locked? Janelle, WTF? Is this the wrong address? Celia, where is everyone? Why would you cancel without telling us? I didn't respond. I had told them. They just hadn't listened. Later that night, after a quiet dinner and a long soak in the tub, I wrote back, I asked for your time. You said it wasn't worth it. So I stopped trying. The backlash began almost immediately. Maura accused me of being petty. Said it was just a party and that I overreacted. Janelle called me dramatically, said she had taken off work to be there and that I embarrassed them. My mom didn't say anything at first. But then the extended family started chiming in. Clearly, she'd gone around telling people I'd set them up to look heck. That's where I'll pause for now. Because this isn't just about a cancelled party. It's about years of emotional neglect, of being the one to always organize, always reach out, always try. And now that I pulled back, they're all acting like I blew up the bridge they've been slowly dismantling for years. Ian says I owe them nothing. That this was the final straw and I should focus on the baby and the people who truly care. But part of me, deep down, still wonders if I'm being too harsh. If hormones are skewing my judgment. If maybe, just maybe, I should be the bigger person again, pick up the phone, and try to fix things. But I'm tired. I'm so tired. And maybe I don't want to fix something that's always been broken. The next morning, I found a voicemail from Celia. She never leaves voicemails. I debated listening to it. I had half a mind to just delete it, like all the other non-messages she'd left over the years in the form of neglect. But I pressed play. Her voice was shaky. Not quite apologetic, not quite angry. Somewhere in that murky middle ground she always lived in, where guilt sounded a lot like gaslighting. Marin, I'm really upset. We made the trip. Your aunt came too, even brought a gift. We were all standing outside, confused, wondering where you were. I don't understand why you'd do this without giving us a real heads up. I know things haven't been perfect, but this felt cruel. Call me cruel. That word stuck with me like a burr under my skin. Cruel was watching me cry through a miscarriage and saying, at least it happened early. Cruel was skipping every IVF milestone and forgetting my first positive test. Cruel was turning the most important event in my adult life into an inconvenient detour. But me? I was cruel because I didn't host a brunch? I didn't call her back. Instead, I folded a tiny onesie, soft and yellow with tiny ducks printed on it, and placed it gently into the hospital bag I had started packing. One item at a time, I laid out the pieces for our little girl's arrival. It helped keep the focus on what mattered. On who mattered. Still, the messages didn't stop. Janelle posted a cryptic Instagram story the next day with a caption that read, "Some people play victim like it's a full-time job." A mutual cousin screenshotted it and sent it to me with a yikes. Maura texted something along the lines of, "Look, I get that you were hurt, but you totally overreacted. We were coming. You didn't even give us the benefit of the doubt." But I had. I gave them weeks. Months. Multiple chances. What they wanted was a last-minute redemption arc, showing up late and expecting a hero's welcome. When they didn't get that, they turned the whole story upside down, casting me as the ungrateful one. The antagonist in my own celebration. I started thinking back, not just to this shower, but to every major life event that came before it. When I graduated college, they left halfway through the ceremony. When Ian and I got engaged, Maura asked if I was sure after 2 months of dating, even though it had actually been 2 years. When we bought our first house, Janelle told me the neighborhood was meh. And when I lost our first baby, I told my mom through tears over the phone, and she said, "Don't worry, you're still young." All of it added up to a quiet mountain of disappointment. Not outright cruelty, not the kind of big drama you hear about on true crime podcasts. Just little emotional paper cuts. Hundreds of them. Over the years. So when this baby shower debacle happened, it wasn't the beginning. It was the tipping point. A few days after the voicemail, Ian and I received a card in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar, my Aunt Soline. Inside was a simple note, handwritten on thick cream paper, Marin, I'm sorry I didn't call or write sooner. I heard what happened. I won't make excuses for your mom or the girls. But I want you to know that I did plan to come. I brought a blanket I made for the baby. We were surprised when the venue was closed, but I respect your decision. You deserved more than what you got. I know things feel broken. But I see you. I love you. Solene tucked inside was a baby blanket, lavender and white, soft as air, with little roses stitched into the corners. I held it to my chest and cried, the kind of cry where your whole body releases, not from hurt, but from being seen. Ian wrapped his arms around me and whispered, that's what real family looks like. He was right. Still, the noise from the rest of them didn't stop. Maura started texting friends of mine, fishing for details. One of them forwarded a message where Maura asked, has she always been this sensitive? Janelle apparently told a coworker that I was milking the pregnancy thing for attention. That little gem made its way to me through the social grapevine too. It would have hurt me before. But now? It felt more like background static. Irritating, but not debilitating. What did sting, though, was the idea that they might treat my daughter the same way they treated me, dismissively, conditionally. The thought of them showing up months from now with performative gifts and filtered selfies, acting like nothing happened, made me feel nauseous in a way that had nothing to do with pregnancy. Ian and I had a serious talk one night as we folded more baby clothes. I don't want people around her who make her question her worth, I said. I lived that. I don't want that for her. He nodded. Then we draw boundaries now. Before she gets here. So we did. We decided that no one, not Celia, not Maura, not Janelle, would be invited to the hospital. No visits in the first few weeks, maybe even longer. No photos on social media. No passive-aggressive gifts mailed with guilt tucked into the gift tags. Ian and I created a small list of people who would be part of Aloan's life. People who had earned that right, who had showed up not just in body but in spirit. And yet, even as I write this, the part of me that was raised to keep the peace, to swallow hurt and serve hospitality on a platter, still wavers. What if this causes a permanent rift? What if Aloan grows up without knowing her aunts or grandmother? What if I've made things worse? I don't know. All I know is that I reached a point where loving myself, and now my daughter, means saying, this is enough. They made it clear they didn't value the moment that meant the world to me. So maybe they don't get to be part of the world I'm building now. The text slowed down after a week, though the silence felt just as loud. My mother didn't reach out again after her voicemail, at least not directly. Instead, she resorted to her usual tactic, extended family diplomacy. My cousin Nora messaged me one afternoon, a casual, hey, just checking in, how are you feeling, sort of text, followed quickly by, I heard things got weird with the baby shower. Your mom seemed really upset. She said there was a big misunderstanding? That word again. Misunderstanding. It wasn't one. I took a deep breath, replied simply, everything's fine here. We decided to keep it small and intimate. She didn't press, bless her. Maybe she sensed I was done explaining myself. Ian, ever the steady hand, kept me grounded. While I was ruminating, he painted the nursery. He put together the crib without cursing once, read reviews on car seats, even figured out how to install the baby monitor we bought. I can't believe she's almost here, he said one night while screwing in the last bolt on the rocking chair. I feel like we've already weathered a storm. We had. And the more days passed, the more I realized just how tired I was of trying to build bridges that always ended up one-sided. It wasn't just the baby shower. It was a pattern. The quiet disappointments. The flippant comments. The absence during my lowest points. My family loved in their own way, if you could call it that. But it always felt conditional. Performative. Now, as my belly tightened and rolled with the soft kicks of the little girl growing inside me, I knew something had to change. One night, a few weeks after the non-shower, I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the baby blanket Solene had sent. It was still folded in the original wrapping, though I'd opened and refolded it countless times. There was something comforting about the care she put into it. She hadn't even called to tell me she made it, just quietly sent it with a note. No performance. Just love. Ian walked in and saw me staring at it. He sat beside me, wordless for a moment, then asked, "Are you thinking about her again?" I nodded. "Your mom?" "Yeah. And my sisters." "And what happens after this?" "After Aloan is here." He leaned back on his hands. "You don't have to make any decisions yet. You don't owe them anything, not now, not ever. But if you want to reopen the door, you can. Just make sure it's a door, not a floodgate." That stuck with me. A door. Not a floodgate. I wasn't sure if I wanted to open anything yet. But I didn't want to live in bitterness either. I just wanted peace. Then came the package. No note, no card. Just a box on our porch addressed to Marin plus baby. Inside were 3 items: a pink ruffled newborn dress, a stuffed lamb, and a photo frame with the words "Grandma's Little Angel" engraved in silver cursive across the top. I held the frame for a long time. It was pretty. Generic. Probably something picked up in a hurry at a big box store. It wasn't the gift itself that bothered me. It was the assumption it carried, that all was forgiven, that nothing needed to be addressed. That after weeks of silence, guilt-tripping, and zero real apology, she could just send a cute token and be part of our lives again. I showed it to Ian, who took one look and said, "I'll put it away if you want. You don't need to deal with that now." And I didn't. I didn't respond. Instead, I messaged Solene. "Hi. I just wanted to say thank you again for the blanket. It meant a lot. I've been thinking about everything, and I'm still working through it. But your kindness hasn't gone unnoticed." She replied the next day. "I'm always here, sweetheart. No pressure. Just love. Simple." That was the kind of energy I needed going forward. Ian and I sat down together to finalize our birth plan. I didn't put my mother's name on the emergency contact list. I didn't include my sisters in the call tree. I didn't send out baby watch group texts. It wasn't out of spite. It was out of self-preservation. Because here's the thing no one tells you about motherhood: you start becoming the mother before the baby arrives. And part of that is protecting your peace, your space, your child, from anything that threatens it. Even if that threat comes wrapped in the form of family. A few days later, Janelle texted me. "Heard you're due soon. Guess you're still mad. Hope the birth goes well anyway." It was the most backhanded well-wish I'd ever received. No warmth. No curiosity. Just an attempt to cover her bases in case someone asked if she reached out. I didn't reply. What would I even say? You're right. I'm still mad. But I'm also done. Because that's what it was. I was done. Done chasing. Done performing. Done twisting myself into knots for people who barely glanced at the ribbon. Aloan deserved better. So did I. The days blurred after that. I was in that strange final stretch of pregnancy where time both rushes forward and stands completely still. Each day, I moved a little slower, breathed a little heavier, and checked the hospital bag again like it was a ritual I needed to complete just right. The nursery was nearly done. Soft shades of lavender and warm wood accents. We had framed ultrasound photos on the wall, a bookshelf that Ian built himself, and a plush armchair tucked into the corner under a reading lamp. Sometimes I'd sit there at night, rubbing my belly, whispering to Aloan about the world she was about to meet. About how I hoped it would be kind, even if parts of my own world hadn't been. The texts from my sisters had stopped. Not that there were many to begin with, but even the passive-aggressive check-ins had dried up. I had become the villain in their version of events. I knew that. I pictured Maura rolling her eyes over wine with her friends, recounting how her overly emotional sister canceled a baby shower out of spite. I imagined Janelle telling people I'd always loved drama, Maybe it was easier for them to see it that way, to avoid looking at what really happened. But none of that mattered anymore, not really. Because the further I moved from that weekend, the clearer it became, this wasn't about a single event. It was about years of imbalance. Celia had always been emotionally distant. She gave hugs, but never warmth. Gave advice, but never comfort. When I was young, I used to watch her laugh with my Aunt Solene and wonder why I never got that version of her. I think, over time, I convinced myself it was something I could earn if I just tried hard enough. And with Maura and Janelle, I was the oldest, the planner, the fixer. They came to me when they needed things, rides, advice, help moving apartments. But when I needed support, they vanished. Or worse, minimized everything until I felt foolish for even asking. I always told myself it would change one day. That something would force us into closeness. A wedding, a crisis, a baby. But when the baby came, all it did was shine a light on what was already broken. A few days before my due date, Ian came home from work with flowers. He placed them in a vase without saying much, then sat beside me on the couch, resting his hand on my belly. "She's almost here," he said. "Yeah. Are you feeling okay?" I looked at him, eyes stinging. "I keep thinking about what it'll be like when she asks about my family. What am I supposed to say?" He was quiet for a moment. "Then, you'll tell her the truth. In pieces. When she's ready. And you'll show her that love doesn't have to come with strings." I nodded. "What if they try to come back after she's born? Like nothing happened?" He sighed. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But we decide who's in her life. Not them." I leaned into him and closed my eyes. I wasn't sure if I was grieving the family I never had or the one I'd always pretended I did. Maybe both. Then came the Facebook post. My mother, of all people, posted a photo of the stuffed lamb she'd sent in the package. The one with no card. She'd set it on a white baby blanket and captioned it, "Getting excited to meet my granddaughter soon. Being a grandma is a blessing I've waited for so long. Sparkling heart # first grandchild # love." Like no other, I stared at the screen for a solid 5 minutes. No mention of me. No acknowledgement of the fractured relationship. No apology, public or private. Just a neatly cropped photo, carefully curated to make it seem like all was well. Ian saw it over my shoulder. "Are you serious?" he muttered. I didn't say anything. I just logged out and set my phone down. There was nothing to say. 2 days later, I went into early labor. We hadn't expected it, everything had been so quiet, so routine, but I woke up with cramps that felt different, deeper, more urgent. By the time we got to the hospital, contractions were 5 minutes apart. Everything moved quickly. My doctor was calm and reassuring, the nurses kind and attentive. Ian held my hand through every moment. Hours blurred into one another, and when I finally heard that first cry, thin, bright, impossibly loud, I sobbed so hard I thought my body would come apart. Eloan rose. She was perfect. A full head of dark hair. 10 tiny fingers. Eyes wide and alert. We held her skin to skin, tears soaking our cheeks, and I knew, in that moment, I had made the right decision. Every painful conversation I didn't have. Every invitation I didn't send. Every message I didn't respond to. Because none of them were there. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the absence. I felt whole. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. I didn't post anything. Ian didn't either. It wasn't secrecy, it was protection. We needed those early moments to be ours. Just us. No noise. No narrative. The hospital had a small whiteboard outside the maternity rooms where visitors could leave notes. Some of my friends stopped by and scribbled things like "She's here," and "Welcome to the world, baby girl." It was sweet and warm and everything I'd hoped for. But no family names appeared. At least not the ones who had been absent for so long. On the third morning, as we were packing up to leave, Ian checked his phone and let out a long sigh. "What now?" I asked. He handed me his phone. Celia had posted again. "We were not told when the baby arrived. Not included. Not contacted. I don't understand why. I'm heartbroken, but I'll always love her." Dozens of comments had poured in from extended family and her church friends. "What? That's terrible, Celia. Praying for reconciliation. She's probably just overwhelmed. Don't give up." Once again, I was the villain in a story I never asked to be part of. Once again, she painted the picture just right: tears without context, hurt without history. Ian reached for my hand. "Don't look at it. Just breathe. You don't owe them this moment." But the damage was already done. This wasn't just about me anymore. They had made it public. A performance. And that meant I had a decision to make, one I hadn't fully prepared for. I sat in the passenger seat on the drive home, Aloan nestled in her car seat behind me, a tiny pink cap on her head and her face scrunched in that perfect newborn way. Ian drove slowly, one hand steady on the wheel, the other occasionally resting on my knee. The hospital hadn't felt like a bubble until we left it. Suddenly, the noise of the outside world crept back in, beeps of notifications, the weight of what had been posted, what had been said, what hadn't. But I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel sad. What I felt was ready. Ready to stop shrinking in the face of my family's behavior. Ready to step out from behind politeness and step into something firmer, boundaries made of steel, not suggestion. When we got home, Ian carried Aloan into the nursery while I walked into the living room and opened my laptop. I didn't plan to respond to Celia's Facebook post directly. That would have played right into her hands: more drama, more performance, more fuel for her wounded mother narrative. But I had something better in mind. I wrote an open letter. Not to her. Not to Maura or Janelle. To my daughter. I posted it on my own Facebook, where nearly everyone who knew me could see it, including the extended family who had been fed Celia's curated version of events. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was honest. To my daughter, Aloan Rose, you arrived in this world surrounded by love, the real kind. The kind that holds your hand in the dark and celebrates you in the light. You may never understand the full story of how your life began, but someday, you might ask why certain people weren't there when you were born. Why some names aren't on the guest list of your life. So here is what I will tell you: you were not a fuss. You were a miracle. Your shower was cancelled not because of drama, but because the people invited showed no interest in celebrating you. I protected you then, as I will always do. I chose peace over performance, love over obligation, and presence over pretense. One day, you'll learn that not everyone who shares your blood shares your heart. And that's okay. You'll build your family from the ones who show up with open arms and open hearts, not just open mouths. You are surrounded by people who see you. And when the time comes, I'll tell you all about the woman who sent you a lavender blanket stitched with love, and the man who stayed up all night assembling your crib just to hear your first cry in the morning light. You are loved. You are chosen. You are enough. Always. Mom. I hit post and closed the laptop. Within an hour, the comments started. Some were quiet hearts. Some were from friends who had seen me struggle over the years and said, "You've always deserved better." But the most satisfying part? Extended family started texting me. Aunts and uncles, cousins who hadn't reached out in years, messaged me with apologies. Not for what happened at the shower, but for believing the story my mother had told. "I had no idea," one wrote. "She made it sound like you were shutting everyone out. I'm sorry for assuming." Another, "This was brave. And it made me think about how many times I let your mom speak for you. That won't happen again." Solene called me that night. She had tears in her voice. "That letter," she said, "was the most beautiful, quiet act of justice I've ever seen." I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. But I also didn't backtrack or soften the truth. I had nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of. And then came the final message, from Celia. A private one this time. I saw your post. I didn't realize how deep your feelings went. Maybe I was wrong. I'd like to talk, when you're ready. I stared at it for a long moment. There was no I'm sorry. No real accountability. Just a crack in her carefully constructed facade. But that was enough. Not enough for forgiveness. Not enough for rebuilding. But enough to know that she finally understood that I wasn't playing the game anymore. We didn't speak. Not right away. I didn't feel the need to. I had said what I needed to say, not to her, but to the world. And more importantly, to my daughter. That was my revenge. Not cruelty. Not distance. Clarity. Truth, spoken with a calm voice and an open heart. Not only did my family hear it, they were forced to sit with it. No tantrum, no confrontation. Just the mirror of their own actions, held steady and still for once. Maura unfollowed me. Janelle posted another vague status about family turning on you, which got her the validation she craved. But they didn't respond to my letter. They couldn't. Because for once, the story wasn't theirs to manipulate. It was mine. Aloan is 3 weeks old now. She sleeps curled against my chest most nights. Ian reads to her from a book of poetry that belonged to my grandmother. The lavender blanket from Solene is draped over her bassinet. The nursery is peaceful. No noise. No games. Just love. And that, I've realized, is the most satisfying ending of all. Because I didn't just cut ties with people who didn't value me, I built something stronger in their absence. A life, a family, a home, where love isn't conditional. And I will never again make a fuss over people who couldn't make a little space for me.